You managed to retire from the supervillain game long ago, when you became a parent. Now, your grandchild has inadvertently been kidnapped by an upstart villain, and you're about to show them why the world, rightfully, feared you. A man sat down at a coffee table, a large mug already set and steaming on the saucer in front of him. He unfolded the newspaper and immediately turned to the funnies, reading the comics and smiling at this simple pleasure. After a bit he turned his attention to the puzzles and filled them out with a pen, until coming to a problem. 11 letters, E in the second place and ends with N. They say you should dig 2 graves before finding this. A man thought aloud into his empty house. It had been silent for some years now, his wife Delilah passing with the birth of their 3rd child and those same children moving out once they could. He'd done all he could to help them, he made helpers of computers and hired all the best tutors, but when money was tight he didn't fall back into his old ways. Say one thing for Father Time, he kept his promises, he even made sure his children didn't fall into his habits either. As he pondered the puzzle his home phone rang, and he ignored it. At this early hour it was probably a salesman. What do you have to dig 2 graves for? He thought, and the answer was on the tip of his tongue when the phone rang again. With a heavy sigh he drained the last of his coffee and went to the phone. Speaking. He answered. Dad. It's Vaughn. Chuck's gone. His son said frantically. What do you mean, gone? A man asked, and he was told. The phone slipped from his fingers, clattering against the tile floor, and his whole body reacted. His heart hammered in his chest, his ears began to ring from thousands of explosions, his vision began to pulse and blur at the edges. Vile blood. A man muttered, the name of the villain who took his grandson. The computer screen on the wall immediately filed with information, Vile blood's powers, known weaknesses, area of operation. A man thought to the puzzle again. Retribution. I am a man no more, for a man keeps his promises. I am a titan again, said Kronos, Lord of Time. Charles clung to the man in red armor as they walked through the rubble. Close your eyes, Chuck. The man said in a calm voice, but with a force that wouldn't abide discussion, so Chuck scrunched his eyes as shut as he could until blobs of color formed. How do you know my name, mister? Chuck asked. Oh, Chucky boy, how could I ever forget my favorite grandchild? Just, don't tell Peggy, you know she thinks she's the favorite. He responded with a chuckle. Graham Charles began, until he was shushed. I have but more work to do now, cover your ears and keep your eyes shut, okay son? Grandpa asked, and Charles nodded vigorously. He felt himself set down in a corner and covered his ears for a moment. Until his curiosity got the better of him. He peeked through one eye and saw his grandpa in full glory. He moved in the blink of an eye between metal automatoids, tearing off limbs and using those same limbs to beat other autos into scrap. But he couldn't close his eyes fast enough when he saw his grandpa turn to the man controlling the robots. Kronos. I didn't know, I swear I. And then he was nowhere. What was in his place could hardly be human, to his mind. Chucky boy. You didn't cover your eyes and ears, did you? Yes I did. Charles responded, quickly covering them again. Then how did you respond? Shit, Charles said. Language, son. Let's get you home. With that, his grandpa walked over so very slowly and picked him up. Who are you? Charles asked, trying to ignore the sound as his grandpa stepped on some rubbery wet material. I am as I have ever been. Your grandpa, your guardian. But I used to be so much more. Suddenly, they were in the light again, the fresh breeze blowing through his hair. The time machine is nearby, with good traffic I can probably get you home in half an hour, Grandpa said offhand. He carefully put Charles down in the seat of his old Mustang and shut the door softly. Knock knock. Vaughn ran to the door and opened it wide. Dad? Charles said at the same time as him, both looking to their respective father. I need to go change, Kronos said, still in full regalia, turning away from his son. Wait, Vaughn said. It's all right son. Kronos stepped towards his car when Charles blocked his path. Michelle, the mother, came out with a cry and held her boy. Dad, Vaughn said again, his voice shaking. Would you like to come in for coffee? Kronos sagged a little bit before turning around and removing his helmet, revealing his worn and ragged face. Yeah,